Welcome back. Now, when you're hosting distinguished radio presenters, radio journalists, you know the conversation cannot end.
It was so noisy off air. Like, this is a problem when you have all journalists.
It's informative noise.
Yes.
It has content and character to it.
Wow.
Nevertheless, we're told we have a bit of feedback. Let's take a look at it and then try and figure out how we're going to wrap up this discussion. I have no idea how we're going to attempt to do that, but here are some of your thoughts. 2242 is the SMS line, and the hashtag is Daybreak. Okay. Let's see here. Ali from Wajir says, Uncle Fred Obachi Machoka remains the indisputable blackest man in Black Africa, even in 2019. Okay, right. Shout out to you. That's a shout out. Radio Salam.
All right. Engineer Lazaro this morning. Good morning. You say, I spend most of my free time listening and contributing to RMS radio programs. Asante Sana. Memories go down to the presenters like the late Agao, as well as Senator BOO, Fred Obachi, who we have here with us in studio, and Waweru Mburu. I'm working as a radio technician. Fantastic.
Okay, Samuel Indi, having an affinity to radio also depends on the presenter, their humor, their creativity, their intellect, fluency. The more suave the presenter is, the more the attraction. Radio, I guess, has to be palatable, something you can eat and digest and enjoy. Okay. Samuel Indi there.
Sir Kyoko, you say great to see a galaxy of cross-generational media stars.
Like that.
You guys need to move around colleagues and counties giving inspirational talks. This talk is very rich and motivational. Kudos, keep it up.
Well done there. Leon Lidigo. Okay, this is from India. Because that's where he's studying. I almost have a similar radio story. Started with a 3-month internship. Sneaked in to admire Miss Mwanyiga, Munene Nyaga, Angela Ngwenyi, Jimmy Gatu do their thing. Then God opened doors.
Wow. Zach, good morning. You say, I'm truly a great fan of all of you since Kitambo, Talia, Obachi, Munene. All of you are great.
All right there. Let me see. We still have SMSs, or we are going to do some... Okay. Actually, we're getting to SMS now because these were tweets, right? Yeah. Mwai Wamutai from Murere, Juja. Why? This one has followed the instructions, name and location. I started listening to Uncle Fred Machoka in KBC Radio in the late 90s and had a show every Sunday evening known as Music Time at KBC TV. I am his fan till today. Yeah,
just like Mwai, tell us where you're listening from. Kelvin, you don't say where you're listening from, but you say it's great you have this show. I have a serious request. Can we get a program of appreciating and supporting radio and TV legends, especially in their late years, so that they can enjoy their contribution to the industry instead of winding up as if they had no positive impact on the strides we have made it in the industry. Guys, can we do something? Let's do it. I salute Uncle Fred, Leonardo Mambo, as well as and many others.
All right, and we have one more. You don't give us your name, but say radio is the relationship between the listener and the host. That's why radio cannot die. That relationship is what keeps listeners coming back. And I guess that is why robot hosts cannot do radio shows, even though we know it's coming.
That AI technology.
It's coming. But there's something interesting here, since even as we get, I don't know how we're going to wind up, but let me start with Adele. You left radio.
Yeah.
You broke up with radio.
I broke up with traditional radio.
You broke up. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I broke up with traditional radio, not because I think radio is dying or anything, but I just felt like I needed another challenge. It wasn't exciting me as before, and I wanted to be able to build my own platform, something that I could say is my space and I can determine the programming however I wanted to. So I set up my home studio, which is quite interesting because when I was getting into radio, you'd look at all the equipment you would need to broadcast, and you're like, who is going to give me the money to buy all of these things, God? Or even a frequency, which politician or something do I know? You know. So I set up my home studio and I got into podcasting, which, you know, is going to, I have 2 podcasts now, and I think I wanted to be...
What is, to some of those who only know Machoka,
okay.
Podcast,
think about it as radio episodes, all right? So I don't want to say online radio because there are radio stations that exist only online.
Right.
So these are radio episodes, you could call them that loosely, that you can listen to in your own time on your phone. You can download them, you can stream them, and it's really a growing form of radio. In other, obviously in developed countries, it's much further, but it's also pretty like it's really growing in Africa. The interesting thing about podcasting is that it shifts the model of radio. So they are platforms that deal only with distribution and that distribute my podcast to other radio stations. So
I want to throw a spanner in the works.
Yeah, true.
She did not move out of radio.
Yes.
She just went to set up her own radio station.
Our radio station.
That's simple.
that sounds
So
much better.
don't say you moved out of radio.
So basically, these platforms will distribute your your content to radio stations.
I see.
So it's a whole industry of distribution that we haven't seen in the radio model before.
Is that where?
Wahiga.
Yes.
What she's doing is what I was doing in 1970.
But what was in which
75, 70. I used to record what Charles said. I used to go to hospitals, talk to patients, you understand, give them a chance to send greetings to their loved ones because they have been sort of ostracized, confined, that's the right word. And then after recording that, I could piece it together and have it broadcast on Voice of Kenya.
So you had a podcast in the 1970s.
I had a podcast in the 1970s.
Give us your final. What's your final thought on this?
Just two things, all right? So definitely that's podcasting, and it goes back to our point of saying that all that's changed is that now the listener decides what time, when, what platform, how much they're going to pay to consume that content. And speaking of payment, one thing I think we haven't brought up is what greases the cogs, right? Which is money and advertising. So why have we seen companies spending more on, say, social media campaigns and stuff and not paying as much as they did years before to radio, right? I think it comes down to like insights and who has interacted with that commercial content. And social media has been able to crack that problem and say, Fred in Royal Media right now has interacted with my advert of soda, and I can prove it. So going forth, I think there needs to be, yes, an attention to the content, but an attention to where the money comes from and how to satisfy that, because that keeps sustainability going.
Thank you. I think that's a good aspect they've introduced. Hopefully some of the others can also weigh in on that.
Definitely. We need to get our closing comments because of time. Fred, I'll begin with you.
I just want to say radio is fun. Radio started a long time ago. When I was a baby, I was able to see a radio which had only shortwave and medium wave, and you just press the button, you don't tune, you don't do anything, and it is on. It moves to medium wave, and that is Voice of Kenya or KBC, and then you shortwave, and it is something else, maybe BBC, end of story.
Do you think we'll see
an area about 6 meters up?
Do you think we'll see another Machoka in our generation?
Yes, many Machokas have been born. I think Charles is here is a testimony. He said he used to listen to me when he was...
The only point of departure is I am not as good in him, like him in music.
I like that. Very good.
I give it up to him.
So there will be many other people. I think the evolution has been smooth. We are now getting to see people make choices, like Adela said, and they choose what to listen to, as opposed to those days when we could have a radio open from 6 to midnight. Not midnight. It was earlier than midnight. I think 10. It was 10 p.m. That was it. You understand? But now it is 24/7, so people have choices, not only to listen to the particular station, but to particular people because of the content again.
Right. The traditional radio still remains the king, as we have said, and it remains cheaper than all the other mediums. So it's a challenge throwing to our presenters. They should know even though I started broadcasting when I was walking from Kasarani, I started broadcasting around Kasarani. So I was walking from home to the station. Now I live in my own house. I drive the car I want. But the listener that listens to me from Mashinani still remains there with that car radio. So the challenge I throw to the presenters is that they should know, even though they move, why we have Roga Roga and he has not decided to translate it into something else. It is because he has remained Machoka and he still has the listener in his mind. That listener who, even though knows that there is the new songs that Mutua is telling us how to play on radio, they still want those old songs in those old styles. The difference is the exposure of information is high. The listener is more knowledgeable today. So a challenge to do more research, to be more knowledgeable, and to package the information better. Again, we have come in times when we glorify the talent so much. We bring somebody on radio to present just because he's talented. You know, when he appears in the crowds, you know, he's hey, and Oga, what do you say those things? Igwe things. But when you come to present, it is something else. It is something different. I need to get some information from you. And by, you realize those the very talented people may not be able to do good research to present to people in the right ways. So the talent kind of is challenged, the comedy dies, and the presenter is also the presentation and the information expected by the listeners is also not delivered in the right ways. If we understand those things and move with the technology today, radio will still remain the most favorable, because you only need this thing, you just switch on, no bundles, and you listen.
Listen, Monene, come in and give us your final thoughts. Radio and morality, or that word almost slipped out from my tongue. Morality. Yes.
Don't worry. I think, I don't even believe I could conclude. I think I will raise more questions than answers. I think the one thing that I will say in my experience, radio is not a custodian of morality, because morality rests on the individual. But unfortunately, because we live in a society, nowadays our morals are determined by the economics. I have had my experience with Ruben FM. I usually go there just to see what they're doing. The economics determines the morals. So no matter how much we harp, no matter how much we sit and try, if the economics are wrong, the morals are wrong. And it is worse at the lowest end and at the highest end. When you're in the chums, then you're exercising power. And that's why then radio becomes a tool for propaganda. And that's why it's very hot during elections. And we've even seen a radio journalist being taken to a court. Secondly, I think what Adele was talking about, revenues. 2014, PSI, Population Services International, was very big. That time we were talking about AIDS and any abstinence. When we were fighting the abstinence fight, which nowadays we're not fighting because we realized abstinence is not there. Now, the biggest spending is from betting companies. And on an election year, if you go to the statistics, 2017, it was government because of elections. So we're complaining that guys are betting. That's where the investment has gone. Top 5 of the biggest spenders are betting companies. Why? Because people, just like in elections, they want to win something. The elections have one jackpot, the presidency, then 47 regional jackpots for governor. The other jackpots are just the same. So I think radio will always mirror our society. It's not about us to panel beat, because the more you digress from what society is doing, the less listenership you have.
Fair enough.
And then you die off.
Fair enough. Thank you. Adele, we had already kind of gotten your thoughts. Allow us to skip you for this one. Charles?
Charles, for me, perhaps my one question would be, so far with the years that you've done radio, is there that one story that you feel impacted someone's life?
Yes. It wasn't a story. It was really more of a series, a campaign during the pre and post elections, after what we experienced in 2007. The call to peace. Of course, you receive a lot of backlash. You're telling us about peace, but justice comes before peace, especially for the audience I was broadcasting to. But I had to stand my ground. And one thing I have realized is in media generally, I told you I cut across the board. In media generally, the truth will always set you free. It will may be bitter today, but if you stick to it tomorrow, people will come back and say, you're actually telling us the truth. So one story that remains deeply in my heart is standing for the truth. Peace is a prelude to justice. That is a story that goes for me. As I wind up, and like Munene, I cannot wind up talking about radio, but radio has a very bright future. The future of radio is actually in vernacular. Why do I say that? And allow me at this point to paraphrase Nelson Mandela's quote, speak to them in a language they understand, you will get into their heads. Yes. Speak to them in a language, in their language, and you will get into their hearts. As time goes by, we are becoming very emotional beings. We are thinking more with our hearts than with our minds. You know, I'm thinking about the money I want to make. I'm thinking about the girl I want to date. I'm thinking about things that are very close to my heart. So the more radio speaks to people in their vernacular. And as we speak now, according to CAK, we have 30 different broadcast languages in Kenya. 30
different broadcast languages.
Soon we are going to have, out of the 178 stations, soon we are going to have probably 45, and we are going to have like, among the Luya community, there are like 19 dialects, 18 or 19. So probably we are going to have 19 Luya dialects because you speak to their hearts. And like Munene says, I think there is no better way to wind it up than that. The biggest challenge to radio is commercialization, chums. This is what is making radio stations go for the Igwes of this world and the comedians and not the professional like Talia. You see, because I set up a radio station because I want money. And if Talia is popular and not trained, she'll give me the money. Because
so having comedians on radio, do you think it's watering down the profession when we move it from a platform for journalists to a platform for anyone?
Yes, it is. And I'm happy MCK, Media Council of Kenya, and other media stakeholders are pushing media owners into making sure that even the comedians are trained the basic tenets of good journalism. That way, we are going to have it much more.
Fair enough. Talia, even as give us your final thoughts. What's that one thing you'll say when I leave radio, although it sounds like nobody here ever leaves radio from what they're saying, but I did this one thing.
Put a smile on somebody's face.
Put a smile on somebody's face. Okay.
Because there are people who go through a lot. I have met people who tell me, Talia, this was happening in my life, but you said this, and it made my day. It didn't change my life, but it made my day. So if you have that one person who will remember just that one day, you put a smile on their face, means everything to me. Yeah, you know, just having listeners, like I have listeners who were listening to me from when I was 17 years old, you know, listeners who are there, and even right now I bump into them, or they will still call me at the radio station. And
my son is one of them.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, so you have all these listeners who grew up with you. They'll still continue to listen, you know, to you even as times change. As they're saying, times are changing. It's digital. It's no longer analog. Times are changing, but these people are still growing up. You know, they're growing up, and they're having kids, and their kids are listening because, oh, my folks like this person. And I'm on TV, I'm doing a reggae show. Then I'm on radio, I'm doing a reggae show. But you know, it's different. It's different. TV, yes, they see me. Radio, they're listening, they call in, you know, they're there on Twitter, you know, they're retweeting, they're on Instagram, you know, you're there, you're on your Instagram live, they're watching what you're doing. They're excited to see that, you know, and they know that if Talia comes on at this time, she'll tell me about this person. Talia, there's this song I heard, you know, from way back when. This is how it sounded like. Could you please play it for me? And you'll be able to find it. And the good thing about that is, you know, back then we were not able to, you know, go online and download a song immediately, even if you don't have it on the system. Right now, if you call me and you say you want this particular song and it's not on the system, it will just take me a minute to download it and play it for you. You know, I can't do that on TV. If somebody calls me up on TV and says, play for me this song by Don Carlos, I don't have it there. You have to wait till next week. For me to play it for you, I have to wait a while. But with radio, it's immediate. Radio is growing. It's still the same. It will forever stay radio. You know, 20 years from now, I will still be, if God allows me and I'm still alive and I'm here, I will still be listening to radio. You know, I grew up listening. I grew up listening to Uncle Fred. You know, right now, if I tune and listen to him, I'm excited. You know, he makes me laugh. You know, it's exciting to listen to it. And you know, there's all these different stories. There's banter here, and there's you put people from two different generations on a radio station, on a radio show, and they're talking about, you know, just one thing. Ask them to talk about how much soda is now, how much it was way back when. You know, just having them, you know, talk about that in particular, it's exciting to listen
it's
to.
Something that really works out.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, we need to wind up, and I was just going to read their names and say thank you to each of them.
Before you wind up, please,
like
just 30 seconds.
Okay.
30 seconds?
15. Go ahead.
All right. I just wanted, you asked about morals and radio. I just want to weigh in on that and say, as a radio presenter, it is a privilege you got to be on air. Remember, as you talk to your audience, if whatever it is you are talking about, you cannot talk about it when you are seated with your mother and your father and your father-in-law and your children, kindly don't talk about it.
Okay.
Because especially those who are on air during, watershed hours,
non-watershed
hours.
I trust
okay,
that's correct,
from morning from 6 a.m. to about 9 p.m. Kindly, because there will be people in a matatu who are not there by choice, but they are listening to radio because the driver has switched on to your station.
Yes.
And that person would be with his daughter, his mother-in-law, his father-in-law,
and you need to think about them.
And you need
so
to
that's
think
your cardinal.
about those
That's
things.
your cardinal rule.
That is all
when you work on content.
Yeah.
All right, man. We had quite an elaborate outro, but I don't know how we're going to do it.
So I'm told we can do our SMSs and tweets. Then they can do their.
If anyone wants to do a drop, just like one line to the camera, you actually can, and we're going to allow you to think about that.
Yes. Which camera is it? Which camera?
Feedback fast.
Our friend is always ready. Look at him.
Feedback fast.
This camera
is the feedback on first as they think. Okay, but Machoka doesn't even need time to think. Okay, this is what you're saying. June from Nakuru says, I love listening to radio most of the time that I am at work or working.
Okay, Jeff from Upper Hill, good morning. You say, I remember those days of Machoka programs like Sanyo Ju, Sanyo Top, and Sanyo Keramas.
Ski hour. I don't know what that means. Bogwa Charles says innovations across the products, paradigms, and processes of globecasting at personal, TV, radio levels, as well as the content and wow, this is like a thesis. And context levels is what will keep any caster, program, or station afloat. A personal touch with consumers is core, in line with the real-time nature of ICT. A factoring of generational diversity is pivotal.
I thought you'd not make it. Well done. Clap for yourself.
Thank you, Mbogwa Charles, for that.
All right. Oh, here's another one. So you don't say who you are, but you say radio wins. I used to listen to radio while plucking tea at home early in the morning through lunchtime. Life was awesome. I still love radio. I think that's what you meant, love radio. And if you want to ask the sweetness of radio, ask bus drivers, house helps, and their daily chores. Unfortunately, lately, I'm a music producer. My ears can't multitask. But whenever I drive or on social media, I still listen to the radio.
Okay, this is what you have to say on Twitter now. These are your tweets at Thank God Jugush. Let's appreciate all the amazing radio journalists out there doing great work against all odds, telling stories that we need to be told, asking the right questions, and keeping us informed, educated, and entertained. Keep that mic on. Hashtag.
Beautiful. James, you say, I used to connect a series of batteries once the charge was low using cartons or wooden made.
Okay, and we had someone talking about that. This is the last one. Lavish Script. With the rise of podcasts, I agree. Listening is still one of the fastest ways to absorb information or content. All right, profound.
So
I don't know who's agreed. Maybe not everyone, but those who are ready to do it.
Fred, I'm
okay.
ready
So
to
he's
jump.
ready. This is the camera.
That's your
Short.
camera.
Yes. Go for it.
Wow. You're watching Daybreak on Citizen TV Kenya. This is the blackest man in Black Africa, Uncle Fred Obachi Machoka, doing it like kitu gani. Niko hapa na wasee wa nguvu. Oh my gosh. This is the place to be.
Who's going to go after that? Well done. Well done.
I think we finish it.
Everybody else?
Don't dilute anything.
Okay, just your name, maybe. You know, there's someone like, is Niye ama Siye? You know that Niye. Okay, just briefly.
Mimi nitasema tu tupatane leo jioni. Tuna nafasi ya kulonga longa nikiwa na Mashirima Kapombe anajiita Miss Shombe Shombe. na alustad pasua, kwa sababu wakati huo tutakuwa nazungumza Kiswahili. Watu wengine wanasema sio mimi nazungumza kile Kiswahili ambacho nimemaliza, kwa sababu wanadhani kwamba mimi nazungumza Kiingereza kwa sababu mimi ni mtu mwingine, lakini hatubadiliki. Jioni saa 1 Nipashe.
Waithera wants to say something.
Are we going to get a quick Kikuyu link there?
Yes. No. After this, we go to Inoro. You also broadcast in Kikuyu.
Me, myself?
Oh, yes.
Did you see Victor Kinuthia?
Yes.
Compared to what I will do. Compared to what I will do. Okay, so that's your link?
Yes. Just wanted to tell you, we are proud of our mother tongue, and we are happy to have all these stations.
Tell them they're looking at
because there is unity in our diversity, and we hope that having all these vernacular stations, it's gonna not divide us, because we still have other items that unite us as a country. Good evening. I do evening show.
You're going to wink at that camera there.
Yes.
Talia,
yes, I do evening show. Sure.
I thought Adele would wink.
Sure.
You say you wink.
Okay, give this. That camera is yours.
Oh man, I can't speak Kikuyu, but I will listen so that I can learn. I promise. So it's Adele Onyango. You can tune in to my podcast anytime you want. All you have to do is just go to SoundCloud, Spotify, Castbox, any of your favorite podcast platforms, and search for Legally Clueless.
Wow, Legally Clueless.
Say that in Luo. Say that in Luo.
Okay, no.
Time.
All right,
Talia?
the team upstairs
You
going to
already have
finish
a
us.
mic.
Oh, sorry.
Talia, go ahead. That's your camera.
And Ilunga Talia Oyando. I'm just kidding. No. All right. So, of course, you can find me on my social media, which is at Talia Oyando, to find out where I am, what time, everything I'm doing. But make sure you catch me right here on Citizen TV, Saturdays from 4 to 7 p.m. for the very best of reggae music, your #1 reggae and dancehall TV show in Africa. Thank you so much for keeping us right there at #1. I am Aitel Talia, your nightness. Peace, love, and harmony.
Someone upstairs kept shouting night nurse. She said it. And Zinzi has a shout out.
No, I do not. Filigal Charles right there.
Okay.
We need to create time for Web Wars, which is up next. Kimani Mbuga will be telling us what's been trending on Twitter, on social media throughout the entire week. And then later on, we'll level it up as we usher in the weekend. Let's take that commercial break.